was the powerful and feared Genovese family captain Angelo Prisco, an FBI informant. Let's check it out. I'm James Gladwish and welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at an FBI document that indicates that respected Genovese captain Angelo Prisco was an FBI informant. Genovese crime family mobster Angelo "The Horn" Prisco died in prison in June 2017 at the age of 77. He was serving a life sentence for murder. Angelo Prisco was born in 1939. During the 1970s, before he became an inducted member of Cosa Nostra, Angelo Prisco had been a member of the greatly feared East Harlem Purple Gang. I caught up with respected mob historian Scott Dici, author of books such as Garden State Gangland and Cigar City Mafia, to talk about Angelo Prisco. Scott wrote a book about the East Harlem Purple Gang called Hitmen, and is well versed on Angelo Prisco and his criminal career.
Yeah, the first two arrests we know of with Angelo Prisco, one was in 1958. He was arrested on a third-degree assault. Charges were dropped. He apologized to the victim and actually paid the medical expenses of the guy he beat up. Very non-gangster-like, but he was arrested for a fight in a high school football game in Yonkers in 1964. And then early 70s, he starts hanging out more with members of the Purple Gang. But it's important to understand that Angelo Prisco and his brother Pasquale Prisco were first cousins of the Meldish brothers, Joseph and Michael Meldish. So the four of them were a very strong core for that early iteration of the Purple Gang. And Angelo Prisco kind of serves as muscle in some way. In 1973, he gets involved with shaking down trucking routes for competitors of the Paganos up in Rockland County. And the Paganos are using the Priscos and the Meldishes as kind of their muscle. So Prisco's name comes up a lot in the early 70s in terms of his ties with the Purple Gang. So based on information I saw, he was made sometime in the mid 70s into the Genovese family, but still was hanging out with members of the Purple Gang. His base of operations was the DiGilio Boys Social Club on Westchester Avenue in the Bronx. And it was kind of his base of operations during that kind of late 70s into the early 80s time period.
Do you know how he came over to move over to kind of feature in New Jersey?
Yeah, it's weird how Prisco became kind of like the head of the Jersey faction, since he was never really one of the Jersey Genovese guys. He always was based out of the Bronx, Yonkers, kind of that area of New York. It's unclear exactly what led to it, but likely he was probably the strongest candidate to pick up that crew. But he certainly did not get a start in terms of involvement with any of the Genovese Jersey crews.
As mentioned, Angelo Prisco would become a prominent captain in the New Jersey faction of the Genovese crime family. In 1998, Prisco pled guilty to arson and received 12 years in state prison. He was then controversially released on parole in May 2002. In May 2007, the 67-year-old Angelo Prisco pled guilty to extortion charges and was sentenced to 50 months inside. A mob associate of Prisco's, Jeff Santini, had turned informant and wore a wire and recorded Prisco in conversation. Interestingly, Prisco took Jeff Santini under his wing after he had falsely claimed that he was the son of murdered Genovese New Jersey powerhouse John DiGilio. And so, in September 2008, while Prisco was being held at FCI Edgefield in South Carolina, Special Agent John P. Larrea Jr. and Task Force Officer William J. Quant met with Prisco to inform him that a 10-count racketeering indictment was pending against him. The imprisoned Genovese crime family captain then talked candidly with the law enforcement officers about several mobsters and mob events. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the document regarding the conversation with Genovese captain Angelo Prisco. The FBI summary of Prisco's conversation with the FBI would state, in describing Santini and other informant cooperators, Prisco stated that guys are born rats and don't just become rats. If you're a rat while you're in your mother's womb. From the document, it is clear the Genovese crime family captain Angelo Prisco has some strong thoughts about informants. But evidently, he didn't consider having a candid conversation with the authorities as informing. Let's see what else Angelo Prisco discussed. Angelo Prisco would talk about Angelo Nicosia, an associate who worked for him. He would also discuss Michael Visconti, another associate who, like Jeff Santini, would become an informant. The FBI file reads, Prisco knows Angelo Nicosia as Angelo the Zip, and Nicosia is married to a black girl. Prisco was aware that Michael Visconti testified as a witness in the FBI's case against Nicosia. Prisco stated that Visconti and Santini were involved with him and John Capelli on the extortion case that Prisco pled guilty to and is currently incarcerated for. Prisco stated that he never made the swinging of a baseball bat motion that Santini claimed that he did. Prisco stated that if we noticed when he pled guilty to the charge in court, he did not admit to making the swinging of the baseball bat motion because it was not true. The John Capelli mentioned was a mob associate who ran a company that put up the lights for the San Gennaro festival in Little Italy. Prisco's conversation with the FBI would continue. Prisco was also aware that Eddie Cobb was a rat and stated that he never trusted Cobb. When Cobb was losing his house, he wanted to give Prisco money from stolen Cougarans, and Prisco told Cobb to keep the money. Eddie Cobb was a conman and Genovese crime family associate who became a government informant and managed to record conversations with Angelo Prisco. Cobb also took part in several home invasions. Cobb would commit suicide in around 2015. The FBI also asked Angelo Prisco about any Albanian gangsters that he might know. The FBI reported that Prisco stated that he does not know any of the Albanians. Interestingly, Angelo Prisco would then share information on the state of the Genovese crime family, as well as sharing his opinion on powerful Genovese family mobster Tino Fiumara. The file reads, Prisco stated that he was going through a divorce with his wife Trish. Prisco went on to state that his family isn't what it used to be. When you were away in prison, they would take care of your family, and when you get out, you would get money. Now, things are different. Prisco stated that Tino Fiumara is full of himself and has a big ego. Prisco asked how old Fiumara was. Prisco went on to state that there was only one true boss of his family, and that guy is dead now. Anyone who may be the current or previous boss is acting. Considering that this conversation took place in 2008, the one true boss that Prisco references is most probably Vincent Gigante, who had passed away in 2005. The FBI agents then asked Angelo Prisco about the murder of his cousin, Angelo Sangiulo. The file reads, towards the end of the conversation, Prisco was shown a photograph of murder victim Angelo Sangiulo, dated May 1992, a month prior to Sangiulo's murder. Prisco was asked if he recognized the individual in the photograph. Prisco examined the photograph and responded that it was his cousin Angelo in the photograph. Prisco was advised that Sangiulo was murdered a month after the photograph was taken, and further advised that he, Prisco, along with Johnny Balls, John Leto, and Doc, Paul Giacone, were considered suspects in the Sangiulo homicide investigation. Prisco asked if Johnny Balls or Doc were rats, and asked if this was a state or federal case. Prisco then stated the following: Sangiulo was murdered. Sangiulo always had a problem, and he, Prisco, was always bailing Sangiulo out of trouble. Prisco personally investigated the matter to find out who killed his cousin, and was told to leave it alone. Prisco asked S.A. Larrea if he knew what that meant. S.A. Larrea stated he interpreted that as meaning that the murder was a sanctioned mob hit. Prisco confirmed S.A. Larrea's response and stated, "When you're told to leave it alone, you leave it alone." Angelo Sangiulo was the first cousin of Angelo Prisco. He was killed in June 1992. The conversation between Prisco and the authorities is interesting because Angelo Prisco states that he had tried to find out who killed his cousin and why, but was essentially told by his boss Gigante to leave it alone. The FBI agents advised Prisco that he, along with John Leto and Paul Giacone, were considered suspects in the murder of his cousin Angelo Sangiulo. At this point, Angelo Prisco asks if either John Leto or Paul Giacone were informants. Around a year later, this question by Prisco makes a lot more sense. When Prisco was sentenced to life in prison for arranging the murder of his cousin Angelo Sangiulo. The order for the hit came from family boss Gigante. It turns out that Angelo Sangiulo had been stealing from Genovese soldier Anthony Palumbo. A document dated August 2009 from the district attorney's office after Prisco's conviction outlines his involvement in his cousin's murder. The file reads, on June 2, 1992, Prisco arranged the murder of his first cousin, Angelo Sangiulo. Prisco received the order to kill Sangiulo from Vincent Gigante, aka the Chin, who was the then boss of the Genovese organised crime family. Gigante ordered the murder because Sangiulo had been stealing from another Genovese organised crime family soldier, Anthony Palumbo. Prisco assigned two of his own crew members, John Leto, aka Johnny Balls, and Paul Giacone, aka Doc, to carry out the murder. Prisco then devised a plan to lure Sangiulo to Prisco's Bronx, New York social club. After Sangiulo arrived, Prisco told him to get into a van with Leto and Giacone, on the pretense that Leto and Giacone would help Sangiulo with a problem Sangiulo was having with another person. Inside the van, Leto shot Sangiulo numerous times, killing him, then left his body in the back of the van in the parking lot of a Bronx McDonald's. Prisco then picked up Leto at the McDonald's and went with him to dispose of the murder weapon. So, back to the FBI file that documented Genovese Captain Angelo Prisco's prison conversation with Special Agent John Larrea Jr. and Task Force Officer William Quant. At the start of the document, Angelo Prisco clearly states his opinion on informants, saying, "If you're a rat while you are in your mother's womb." However, I would be keen to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you consider Angelo Prisco's prison conversations with the FBI as informing, or is Angelo Prisco trying to use this conversation to ascertain what information the FBI know regarding the murder of his cousin, a crime that he was ultimately convicted of being involved in? I'd like to thank one of the posters and excellent researchers on the fantastic Black Hand Forum website, who kindly gave me permission to use this Angelo Prisco file. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.